You spin me right round like a record player. Oh. Alright guys, today I'm going to be building a welding table, or at least I'm going to try to. I'm going to use some of this material that's in front of you. It's this 2-inch angle stock. I think this is 1/4 inch. And then I've got 2 sheets of this big plate steel here. This is 3/8 inch plate. It's 5 inches wide by 84 inches long. So I'm going to try to cut that up with a saw and use that for the top. You see it's a really long sheet of metal there. I think it weighs around 45 pounds. It's heavy, you know, it's kind of unwieldy to move around on the table. So we're going to cut it up into some chunks. At least I'm going to try to. As you see here for reference, if you can tell, it's a little under 1/2 inch obviously. So that's going to be fun to try to cut through. So I tried to draw up some plans, did them late at night. Hopefully I did everything right and everything will fit together, but we're going to go ahead and start cutting, then we'll grind everything and then start tack welding everything together. See how this thing turns out. Not expected to actually make it through. Holy crap. Let's see. Pretty clean little cut too. Huh. Let's see if we can do that 5 more times. Alright, so we're finally done cutting. The Rage 2 went through everything really easily. Didn't have any problems. Pretty sure at some point I have to replace this blade though, because I've been doing a lot of cuts with it. As you see, it went through a lot of angle, a lot of tube stock, some angle iron, and then that 3/8 inch plate. So it went through, what is it, 6 pieces, I guess. Technically 5 cuts, I guess, but actually no, 4 cuts, since it was 2 pieces. But yeah, had no problem, went through everything pretty easily. The blade still looks like it has some life in it, so I might need to make some additional cuts later on as I figure accessories to put on this table, but right now this should be the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting the angle grinder ready, grinding off some of this mill scale and then getting it ready for welding. Okay, all that cutting's done, so I went ahead and drilled some holes into this angle iron. I basically spaced it out so that the 5-inch plate would have, there would be 5 of them on this entire sheet. And then I drilled 2 holes for each 5-inch plate and then left an inch space in between each plate. So this was a lot of drilling. It was not fun, and I didn't think anyone would want to just see me drilling holes in a piece of steel. But we'll get to the next step. I've got to clean off some of the zinc off the bolts that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and start the angle grinder and do that, and then probably come back and show you how I weld this thing up. Alright, so as you can see, I got a bunch of bolts here. I went ahead and ground down the heads to take off any zinc coating that's on here. These are grade 5 bolts. They're supposed to be, they're medium strength bolts, so you want to get something that's going to hold up. I recommend just buying a box of them. Actually, this is a box instead of buying individual at Home Depot. Oh, I don't think you can see that. So obviously I've got a few left over here, but we'll find a use for them a little bit later. Right now what you want to do is, I went ahead and threaded a nut on, and you just drop it through these holes, and you're going to go ahead and tighten these down. I'll use a wrench to do that, but basically you get the idea. So you want to do this for all of those, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll take the next step. Alright, so I've got everything in place. Let me see if I can explain what I did here. So I took this piece of bar stock and lined it up here just to create a straight edge. Then I went ahead and took each one of these 5-inch plates and lined them up vertically, as you can see here. Added these 1-inch scraps of bar stock in between, so I have a 1-inch space in between each one. Butted them up all together, got them as aligned as I could. Then went ahead and added on the angle iron back here with the nuts, so I mounted those. Holding them in place with these magnets. I'm going to tack weld each one of these little bolts to these plates. And then I'll made sure that everything's squared up. So I went ahead and just put the cross members in place, but I'm not going to actually weld those just yet. They actually need to be flush, as you can see there. They're a little bit below right now. And I'm just using these to keep, make sure that nothing's out of alignment. So everything lined up perfectly. I took measurements, the table's nice and square. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and try to go ahead and tack weld all these little all these little bolts to these plates. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this bar stock because it served its purpose. It was just here for alignment. And now we're going to get to welding. Alright, so here's the table so far. I've welded on some cross members. I still need to weld on the one with those magnets on there. I welded a low piece of it, but it was too hot in here, so I had to go take a break. Anyway, after I weld those on, I might just put on additional cross members on the sides to hold my angle grinders. Then that should be it. Aside from just finishing up the top, grinding it down, and then probably adding on some either casters or some leveling feet. That should be pretty much it. So let me finish welding this up, and then I'll try to flip it over. It was kind of heavy to get off the table. It weighs well over 100 pounds, but it's not that it was heavy, it's just awkward to move. Anyway, let me finish this up and we'll give you a shot when she's when she's right side up. Basically what I did here was took a piece of angle iron and drilled holes in it every few inches, as you can see. And then what I did there is I took some bolts, threaded them through here, tightened up the screws, and then went ahead and put a piece of plate on top of it and welded them in place. And so I did this for 5 different plates. I think the plate's 5/8 inch thick, or maybe it's not that much. I forget how big it is. I think it's only 1/2 inch actually, now that I'm looking at it. Anyway, what I did here was went ahead and drilled each one of these holes with a drill press. The reason I labeled these, if you see, they've got little letters, and on the other side they've got little numbers. And that's so I know which hole they actually correspond to, because obviously if I drilled this with a drill press, there's a good chance they weren't accurate, and so I'd like to make sure that each one of these lines up with the appropriate section. So I'm going to go ahead and flip these over, screw them in, and then show you how the table looks. Alright, let me do that now.
30 minutes later.
Alright, so the table dimensions are 36 inches long by 28 inches deep. These plates are, again, 28 inches by 5 inches by roughly a ½ inch. I already took the measurement of the height. It is 41 inches high. And the gap in between each one of these little pieces is 1 inch. I just used 1 inch bar stock to make sure that everything is consistent. Allows me to put my clamps in. So all I need to do is just slide it in, lock it down, and I can clamp anything I want. So it was a pretty easy little project. I got the top plate at the steel yard, some scrap, so that wasn't too expensive. The rest of the material was pretty new. The only odd piece I had to go and buy was this angle iron, which I think is, let's see how deep it is. So it's a 2x2 inch piece of angle iron. That was the only piece that I needed to use for the top. And then everything else was something I had in the shop, except for the casters. So it's a pretty good little table. I can take it outside, weld with flux core if I want to. I can weld within the shop, move it around the garage and make sure that it's in the right place. I can use it as a little workbench. One thing you'll notice here is I don't have a cross member in the back, and the reason is that I'm going to put this against the wall and it's going to go over a little mini fridge in the garage. So there's a little fridge here, and it had to be a few inches off the ground in order for the door to be able to open so I could get my sodas. So that's the only reason it doesn't have a cross member in the back. So it's just so I can slide it against the wall and keep a fridge underneath it. You know, there's not a lot of shop space in the garage, so I need to use all the space I can get. Anyway, this is a pretty easy little project. Hope you enjoyed it. All right, time for a drink. No beer.